2/3 of Americans take Social Security before full retirement age. The financial world loves to say that proves most people are doing retirement wrong. They talk as if millions of people are all making the same foolish move because they never understood the math. They say the smart person waits, the disciplined person delays, the patient person holds out until 70. I have never liked advice that sounds intelligent only because it ignores how real people live. Sometimes taking Social Security at 62 is a mistake. Sometimes it is the smartest move on the table. That is the part people do not want to admit, because once you admit it, the clean little rule falls apart. Then you have to deal with health, household income, break-even ages, spousal timing, survivor income, portfolio risk, job loss, and the simple fact that a retirement decision is only as good as the life it has to serve. The conventional story is easy to tell. Wait as long as possible, delay until 70. For every year you wait past full retirement age, your benefit rises. By 70, you can collect far more each month than you would at 67, and dramatically more than you would at 62. That sounds obvious. Why take less when you can take more? Because that question hides a deeper one. More for how long? More under what conditions? More for you or more for your household? More in theory or more in the life you are actually going to live? The people who push delay as the universal answer quietly assume a great many things. They assume you will live long enough for the larger check to make up for all the checks you gave up. They assume you do not need income. Now they assume your spouse is not waiting on your filing to unlock benefits. They assume your health is stable enough to make a long delay sensible. They assume you do not have another reason to pull income into the present. They assume timing is just math. Timing is never just math. It is math filtered through a real human life. That is why I want to walk straight through 7 reasons taking Social Security at 62 can be the right move. Not excuses, not emotional cover stories, not rationalizations for impatience. Real planning reasons, the kind a serious planner would examine before telling a client to wait or to file. And if you stay with me all the way through, you will see why this decision should never begin with the question, what is universally best? It should begin with a more useful question, what is best for the life in front of me? Before we get into the reasons, I want to make sure the ground under our feet is solid. If you were born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. That is the age at which you receive 100% of your primary insurance amount. That amount is built from your highest 35 years of earnings. Claim at 62 and you are claiming 5 years early. So your monthly benefit is permanently reduced by about 30%. That is not a tiny cut. If your full retirement age benefit would be $4,000 a month, claiming at 62 can drop that to roughly $2,800. If you wait until 70, delayed retirement credits can lift that same benefit to almost $5,200 a month. That is a very wide spread. So naturally, people ask the break, even question at what age does waiting actually pull ahead. If you compare 62 with 67, the break-even point often lands around age 78. Compare 62 with 70. And the break-even point is usually around age 80 or 81. Compare 67 with 70. And you are often looking at something around age 82. Those numbers matter because they force honesty. If you claim at 62 and live well past 80, waiting would often have given you more total lifetime money. But if you claim at 62 and in your mid-70s, the person who filed early may have come out ahead by tens of thousands of dollars. That is not a trick. That is how the system was built. Social Security was designed so that people who live around average life expectancy receive roughly similar total benefits regardless of when they claim. The system changes the size of the monthly check so that the total dollars can balance out around an expected lifespan. So the real difference is not just how much you get. It is when you get it, and that changes everything. The first reason taking Social Security at 62 can be the smart move is that your filing can unlock spousal or dependent benefits. This point gets missed all the time, and it should not. A spouse cannot collect spousal benefits off your record until you file for your own retirement benefit. So when a higher earner delays, that delay may not be a private decision. It may be holding back household income the entire time. That matters even more when one spouse has little earnings history of their own or a much smaller benefit. Spousal benefits can be worth up to 50% of the higher earner's full retirement age benefit in the right household. That is meaningful money, not symbolic money, not rounding error money, real monthly income. Now, think about what happens if the higher earner is 62 and decides to wait all the way to 70 while the lower earner is ready to receive spousal benefits. That household can give up 8 years of income while it waits for one person's check to grow. People who only optimize the higher earner's personal benefit can completely miss that they are reducing total family cash flow month after month after month. That is why I always tell people to stop thinking about the person and start thinking about the household. The right answer is not necessarily the one that produces the biggest individual check. It is the one that creates the best total outcome for the family. If there is a large gap between spouses' earnings, this issue becomes even more important. A delay that looks elegant on paper for one spouse may be inefficient for the household as a whole. That is reason one. Reason two is harder, but it is real. You are single and your health suggests you may not live past your mid-70s. Nobody likes talking about mortality. Most people would rather discuss market returns than life expectancy. I understand that. But retirement planning gets dangerous the moment people start treating discomfort as if it were wisdom. If your current health, family history, or chronic conditions tell you that a long lifespan is less likely, you do not gain anything by pretending otherwise. The average person who reaches 6 the 2nd of May will live into the 80s. But average is not destiny. Half of people live longer, half live shorter lives. You do not retire into an average life. You retire into your life. If your realistic expectation is that you may not live long enough to reach the break, even point claiming earlier can be the superior move. If the comparison is 62 versus 70 and you do not expect to live past 78 or so, then filing early may deliver more total value over your lifetime. It is not a pleasant calculation. It is simply an honest one. A larger check at 70 is useless if you do not live long enough to enjoy the years in which that larger check is supposed to make up the difference. Social Security is retirement insurance. If your retirement may be shorter, there is nothing irrational about wanting that insurance to start paying sooner. That is not pessimism. That is planning. Reason 3 is a more sophisticated version of household strategy. Your spouse may have a shorter life expectancy, or one spouse may have the larger record, and survivor benefits can change the whole picture. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse can generally step up to the larger of the two benefits. That is the survivor benefit. It means the household decision is not only about what happens while both spouses are alive, it is also about what happens to the surviving spouse after the first death. Suppose one spouse has the larger earnings record and the other spouse has the smaller one. Suppose also that health conditions make longevity uneven inside the marriage. Suddenly, timing decisions are no longer one-dimensional. In some cases, the lower earner can claim at 62 and begin bringing in income. Now, while the higher earner delays or while the household plans around a future survivor benefit, in other cases, if one spouse is likely to die earlier and the other will later inherit the larger benefit, the couple may decide that collecting something sooner on the smaller record is the sensible move. What matters here is that the planning horizon is not just one person's life and one person's check. It is the flow of benefits across two lives. Many people completely miss this because they think in isolated pieces. My benefit, my age, my break, even date. But married retirement planning is not an individual sport. A couple that coordinates intelligently can draw income from one record early and preserve flexibility on the other over time. That can produce a better result than blindly maximizing one check and ignoring the rest of the structure. Reason 4 surprises people. You are ready to retire, you have stopped working, and you already have a sizable nest egg. Most people assume this kind of retiree should always wait. After all, if you have money you can afford to delay. That sounds reasonable until you ask what those years of delay are being financed with. If you are retired at 62 and not taking Social Security, then your spending has to come from somewhere else. Usually it comes from your portfolio. Every dollar you pull out to live on is a dollar that is no longer invested, no longer compounding, and no longer available to recover from future market trouble. So here is the trade-off. Claiming early gives you smaller Social Security checks, but it also reduces how much you have to withdraw from your investments in those first years of retirement. And early retirement is exactly when sequence risk can do the most damage. If markets fall early and you are pulling heavily from your portfolio at the same time, the injury can last for decades. A bad opening stretch in retirement has a way of haunting the whole plan. But if Social Security covers part of your spending from day one, you may be able to leave more of your assets in place. That means more capital staying invested, more time for recovery, less pressure to sell when markets are weak. Now, this does not mean early filing always wins for wealthy retirees. The answer depends on portfolio size, expected returns, taxes, lifespan, and spending needs. But in some cases, The extra investment growth you preserve by drawing less from the portfolio can outweigh the advantage of waiting for the larger Social Security benefit. That is a real reason, not a loophole, not a gimmick, a real reason. Reason 5 is related but different. You are not working. You do not urgently need the income, and you are an experienced investor who wants to put those early checks to work. This is a more aggressive strategy, and I want to be plain about that. It carries risk, but it is still legitimate. The logic is straightforward. If you claim at 62 rather than 70, you receive 8 additional years of checks. Each one is smaller, but you have the use of the money earlier. If you are confident in your investing discipline and you place those payments into productive assets, you are effectively taking control of the timing difference yourself. You are saying, I will accept a smaller government check in exchange for getting cash earlier and investing it on my own terms. If your results are strong enough over time, that decision can outperform the larger delayed benefit, but you must understand what you are doing. Waiting for a bigger Social Security benefit is like accepting a guaranteed increase. Investing the earlier checks is not guaranteed. Markets do not rise smoothly. Some years they punish you, some years they mock your confidence. So this is not a strategy for someone who is guessing. It is not for someone who needs the income to cover groceries and medicine. It is for a person who does not need the check immediately, knows the risks, has the temperament to handle volatility, and believes they can put those early dollars to work effectively. For the right person, that can be rational. For the wrong person, it can be a very expensive act of self-deception. Reason 6 is that another source of guaranteed lifetime income is already coming later, such as a pension or a deferred income annuity. This changes the role Social Security has to play. If you know that a stable income stream begins at 65 or 67, then the years from 62 until that start date become bridge years. In those years, Social Security does not need to be maximized for the rest of your life in the same way, because another floor of guaranteed income is already on the way. Imagine a retiree at 62 who knows a pension begins at 65, or someone who bought a deferred annuity years ago that begins at 67. That future income may already be enough to cover core expenses later. In that case, claiming Social Security at 62 can make sense as a way to smooth the path between now and the start of that later income. Instead of drawing heavily from savings for those bridge years, the retiree can use Social Security to cover part of the gap. By the time the pension or annuity begins, the household may already have a stable base in place. Now the question becomes very practical. Does waiting create real value, or does it simply force unnecessary withdrawals from assets while you sit around waiting for 2 future income sources to start? In some lives, the answer is obvious. In others, it takes careful math. But again, the point is that waiting is not automatically wise, simply because it produces the largest monthly Social Security check. A planning decision must be judged by the total structure it sits inside. Reason 7 is the simplest and the most human of all. You cannot work past 62, and you need the money. Life does not always cooperate with theory. Some people fully intended to work until 65, 67, or beyond. Then their knees failed, their backs gave out, chronic pain made every workday a punishment, or their employer let them go. And after months of trying, nobody wanted to hire a person in their early 60s at anything close to the pay they once earned. People speak about working longer as if it were always a free option. It is not. For many people in physically demanding jobs, that option disappears whether they want it to or not. For others, the labor market quietly closes the door before they are ready. If you genuinely cannot continue working and you do not have enough saved to wait comfortably, then claiming Social Security at 62 is not a failure of character. It is the system doing part of the job it was built to do. That does not mean you claim thoughtlessly. You should still ask if there is a lower stress job you can do, if part-time work is possible, if remote work exists, if savings can carry you briefly while you rethink the plan. But if those alternatives are not real alternatives, then early filing is often the right move. Do not let pride talk you out of using a benefit you paid for over decades. Now, after walking through the 7 reasons early filing can make sense, I also want to be just as direct about when claiming at 62 is usually the wrong move. If you are still working and earning substantial income, filing early is often a bad idea. Before full retirement age, there is an earnings limit. If you exceed it, part of your Social Security gets withheld. So now you have accepted a permanent reduction in the size of your benefit. And on top of that, your payments may be reduced because your earnings are too high. That is a messy result. You shrink the check and still do not fully enjoy it. That is usually not smart planning. If Social Security will be your main or only income source throughout retirement, I would also urge serious caution before claiming at 62. In that case, every extra dollar in the monthly benefit matters deeply. The difference between an early reduced check and a delayed larger one can be the difference between breathing room and chronic stress. When Social Security is foundational, maximizing the monthly amount often becomes much more valuable than it would be for someone with multiple income streams. Health matters here too. If you come from a long-lived family, take care of yourself, and have no serious chronic issues, the odds are better that you will live beyond the break. Even age, if that is the life you are likely to have, waiting can become much more attractive. I also want you to remember that Social Security planning can get more complex than most people realize. Once you add in spousal benefits, survivor benefits, divorced spouse rules, and the timing combinations between two people, you are not choosing between two buttons anymore. You are navigating a system with hundreds of possible configurations. That is why simplistic advice is so dangerous. A person on the internet says never claim at 62. Another person says always claim as early as possible and let the government pay you first. Both people sound confident. Confidence is cheap. Correctness is expensive. So what should you actually do? First, know your numbers. Log into your Social Security account and look at the estimates at 62, 67, and 70. Stop speaking in vague ideas. Work with real dollar amounts. Second, look at your health, honestly. Honestly, family history matters, current conditions matter, expected longevity matters. You do not need perfect certainty. You need an honest range. Third, if you are married, stop optimizing one person at a time. Look at the household ages, earnings history, survivor risk, and the order in which benefits can begin all matter. Fourth, think about the rest of your income structure. Do you have a pension? Do you have substantial retirement assets? Is Social Security a support beam, or is it the whole foundation? The answer changes the strategy. Fifth, if the choice still feels heavy, pay for clear thinking. A fee-only planner who understands retirement income can often save you far more than the cost of the advice. One intelligent decision here can affect decades of cash flow. The average retirement age in America is 62. That fact alone should make you suspicious of neat moral lectures about claiming early. Some of those people are making mistakes, of course they are, but many are doing exactly what their own circumstances require. Social Security is personal. The right claiming age is personal. You should not feel ashamed for considering 62, and you should not let some elegant spreadsheet bully you into waiting, when waiting does not fit your life. The best financial decision is not the one that looks smartest in a vacuum. It is the one that matches your health, your household, your income structure, your risks, and the years you are actually likely to have. I have spent my life around money, and one lesson comes back again and again. A good decision is not a decision that wins the argument. It is a decision that serves the life. So decide with numbers, decide with honesty, decide with the full household in view, and understand this clearly. Sometimes claiming Social Security at 62 is not giving up. Sometimes it is the most intelligent move you can make.